January 7, 1945, Zonhoven, Belgium. British Field Marshal Bernard Montgomery stands before a room full of reporters. The Battle of the Bulge is still raging. German forces launched a massive surprise attack through the Ardennes 3 weeks ago, striking American positions and creating chaos behind Allied lines. Montgomery is about to hold a press conference. According to contemporary accounts, he's in good spirits, confident, almost jovial. He's been given temporary command of American forces north of the German breakthrough. He believes he's handled the situation brilliantly. Now he's going to tell the press about it. What Montgomery says in the next hour will create the worst crisis in Anglo-American relations of World War II. His words will infuriate American generals, create demands for his removal, and nearly split the Allied coalition. And in London, Prime Minister Winston Churchill will have to perform emergency damage control to save the alliance. This is the story of what Churchill said when Montgomery took credit for saving the Americans, how Montgomery's press conference nearly destroyed Allied unity, and how Churchill's intervention in Parliament prevented a catastrophic rupture between Britain and America. Let's go back to understand what happened in the Battle of the Bulge and how Montgomery ended up commanding American forces. On December 16, 1944, according to official military records, German forces launched a massive surprise offensive through the Ardennes forest in Belgium and Luxembourg. 28 German divisions struck thinly held American positions, creating a huge bulge in the Allied lines. The German attack caught American forces by surprise. According to military records, some American units were overrun. Others fought desperate defensive battles. Chaos spread through the area as Germans advanced rapidly westward. General Dwight Eisenhower, Supreme Allied Commander, had to respond quickly. According to his memoir, Crusade in Europe, Eisenhower made several crucial decisions in the first days of the battle. On December 20, 1944, according to official records, Eisenhower made a command decision that would have major consequences. He gave Montgomery temporary command of all Allied forces north of the German breakthrough, including the U.S. 1st and 9th Armies. Eisenhower's reasoning, according to his memoir, was practical. The German attack had split American forces. Communications between General Omar Bradley's headquarters in Luxembourg and the U.S. 1st Army in Belgium were difficult. Montgomery's 21st Army Group headquarters was closer to 1st Army and could coordinate more effectively. This was purely a tactical decision based on geography and communications. According to Eisenhower's account, it was temporary and didn't reflect any judgment about American versus British command competence. But Montgomery saw it differently. According to multiple accounts, Montgomery believed he'd been given command of American forces because British leadership was needed to fix an American failure. Over the following 2 weeks, according to military records, Allied forces contained the German offensive. American troops fought desperately at Bastogne and other key points. The weather cleared, allowing Allied air power to devastate German columns. By early January 1945, the German attack had been stopped and thrown back. Montgomery, commanding forces north of the Bulge, played a role in this defense. According to British military records, British Third Corps was positioned to block any German breakthrough northward. Montgomery coordinated defensive positions and reserve deployments. But the battle was fought primarily by American forces. According to official casualty records, approximately 80,000 American soldiers were killed, wounded, or captured in the Battle of the Bulge. British casualties were minimal, around 1,400. By January 7, 1945, the crisis had passed. German forces were retreating. The Bulge was being eliminated. Allied forces were returning to offensive operations. This was when Montgomery decided to hold his press conference.
The press conference took place at Montgomery's headquarters in Zonhoven, Belgium, on January 7, 1945. According to multiple journalists present, Montgomery appeared relaxed and confident. The conference was recorded by stenographers and reported extensively in newspapers. We have detailed accounts of what Montgomery said from his own words. According to the official transcript and contemporary newspaper reports, Montgomery began by describing the battle situation. He explained how the German attack had created a dangerous situation and how he'd been given command of American forces north of the breakthrough. Then, according to these sources, Montgomery said, "As soon as I saw what was happening, I took certain steps myself to ensure that if the Germans got to the Meuse, they would certainly not get over that river." He continued, "I was thinking ahead. I was widening the area in which the enemy must deploy. Then I gave them battle." Montgomery's words suggested he had taken personal initiative to save the situation. According to the transcript, he described deploying British reserves and organizing defensive positions. Then Montgomery made statements that would cause the real damage. According to contemporary accounts, he said, "The battle has been most interesting. I think possibly one of the most interesting and tricky battles I have ever handled." He called it a battle he had handled, as if he had been the primary commander directing the fight. Montgomery continued, according to press reports, "The first thing I did was to get the battle area tidy, to clear up the mess. I regrouped the American and British forces and was then able to see what was happening." The phrase "tidy up the mess" implied that American forces had been in chaos and Montgomery had organized them. This was insulting to American commanders who had been fighting desperately against overwhelming odds. Montgomery then praised American soldiers, but in a way that made it worse. According to reports, he said, "The GIs make great fighting men, given the proper leadership." This implied American soldiers were fine, but their leadership had been lacking until Montgomery arrived to provide proper leadership. Montgomery concluded, according to press accounts, by saying, "I have great admiration for the American soldier. I salute the brave fighting men of America. I never want to fight alongside better soldiers." This praise might have helped, but it came after Montgomery had essentially claimed credit for saving an American battle through his superior leadership and organizational skills.
The press conference was a public relations disaster. According to contemporary newspaper reports, British newspapers ran headlines like "Montgomery halts German offensive" and emphasized British leadership in the battle. American reactions were immediate and furious. According to multiple accounts, American generals were outraged when they read Montgomery's statements. General Omar Bradley, commanding the 12th Army Group, was particularly angry. According to his memoir, A Soldier's Story, Bradley considered Montgomery's statements a personal insult and a gross distortion of what had happened. Bradley later wrote, "I was so infuriated by Montgomery's arrogant claims that I telephoned Eisenhower. I told him if Montgomery was not immediately removed from command of American forces, I would resign." This was an extraordinary threat. Bradley was one of Eisenhower's most important commanders. His resignation would be a major crisis. General George Patton, according to his diary entry from January 8th, recorded his fury at Montgomery's statements. Patton wrote that Montgomery was trying to steal credit for an American battle and that British command had contributed nothing significant to the victory. American newspapers published angry responses. According to contemporary press coverage, American military correspondents and editorial writers condemned Montgomery's claims as inaccurate and insulting. The crisis quickly escalated beyond military circles. According to official records, the U.S. War Department in Washington received protests from Congress and from the American public. Politicians demanded that American forces be removed from British command immediately. Eisenhower faced an impossible situation. According to his memoir, he was caught between his British and American subordinates. If he publicly contradicted Montgomery, he would create a rift with Britain. If he remained silent, American commanders would revolt. In London,
Prime Minister Winston Churchill learned of the crisis within days. According to various accounts, Churchill was informed that Montgomery's press conference had created serious damage to Anglo-American relations. Churchill understood the danger immediately. According to his chief of staff, Alan Brooke's diary, Churchill was furious with Montgomery for creating this problem. Britain depended on American partnership to win the war. Montgomery's ego threatened that partnership. Churchill decided he had to intervene personally and publicly to repair the damage.
On January 18, 1945, Churchill addressed the House of Commons. According to the official parliamentary record, Churchill gave a speech specifically addressing the Battle of the Bulge and Anglo-American cooperation. The speech was calculated to repair the damage Montgomery had caused. Churchill knew he had to explicitly praise American forces and make clear that they, not Montgomery, had won the battle. According to the parliamentary record, Churchill said, "I have seen it suggested that the terrific battle which has been proceeding since December 16 on the American front is an Anglo-American battle. In fact, however, the United States troops have done almost all the fighting and have suffered almost all the losses." Churchill continued, "They have suffered losses almost equal to those on both sides in the Battle of Gettysburg. Only one British Army Corps has been engaged in this action. All the rest of the 30 or more divisions which have been fighting continuously for the last month are United States troops." These words, preserved in the official parliamentary record, directly contradicted the impression Montgomery's press conference had created. Churchill was making clear that this was an American battle, not a British one. Churchill went further. According to the record, he said, "The Americans have engaged 30 or 40 men for every one we have engaged, and they have lost 60 to 80 men for every one of ours." This was Churchill using specific numbers to emphasize the American contribution and minimize any British claim to credit. Then Churchill addressed Montgomery's role directly, but diplomatically. According to the record, he said, "Care must be taken in telling our proud tale not to claim for the British Army an undue share of what is undoubtedly the greatest American battle of the war, and will, I believe, be regarded as an ever-famous American victory." The phrase, "care must be taken," was a rebuke to Montgomery without naming him. Churchill was saying that British claims, like Montgomery's, had gone too far and needed to be corrected. Churchill continued by praising General Eisenhower specifically. According to the parliamentary record, he said, "I have been shocked to hear suggestions that the Supreme Commander, General Eisenhower, has been overruled by the British, or that his judgment has been questioned. General Eisenhower has conducted this battle with great skill and determination." This was crucial. Churchill was publicly endorsing Eisenhower and rejecting any suggestion that British commanders knew better than the American Supreme Commander.
Churchill concluded this section of his speech by saying, according to the record, "Let no one lend himself to the chatter of mischief-makers when issues of this momentous consequence are being successfully decided by sword. I have complete confidence in General Eisenhower." The speech was reported extensively in British and American newspapers. According to contemporary press coverage, American reactions were positive. Churchill's words helped calm the crisis. But the damage from Montgomery's press conference wasn't completely repaired. According to multiple accounts, American generals never fully trusted Montgomery again after this incident. General Bradley, according to his memoir, wrote, "Montgomery's Belgian press conference had convinced me that he was not only personally arrogant, but also a menace to Allied unity." General Patton wrote in his diary on January 19th after Churchill's speech, "Churchill tried to fix what Monty broke, but we won't forget." Even Eisenhower, who tried to maintain good relations with Montgomery, was frustrated. According to his memoir, Eisenhower wrote, "Montgomery's press conference was an unnecessary complication at a critical time." Field Marshal Alan Brooke, Montgomery's superior and supporter, was also critical. According to Brooke's diary entry from January 10, 1945, Brooke wrote,
Monty's press conference was a mistake. He should never have claimed so much credit. And what about Montgomery himself? According to his memoirs published in 1958, Montgomery maintained that his press conference had been misunderstood. He wrote that he had meant to praise American soldiers and that the controversy was blown out of proportion by sensitive Americans. This showed Montgomery never fully understood the damage he'd caused or why his words were so offensive. Churchill's intervention in Parliament on January 18, 1945, was necessary emergency damage control. According to historical analysis, without Churchill's speech explicitly crediting American forces and praising Eisenhower, the alliance might have suffered permanent damage. Churchill understood what Montgomery apparently did not, that the relationship between Britain and America was based on mutual respect, and that British claims to superior leadership over American forces would poison that relationship.
What Churchill said when Montgomery took credit for saving the Americans is preserved word for word in the parliamentary record. Care must be taken in telling our proud tale not to claim for the British Army an undue share of what is undoubtedly the greatest American battle of the war and will, I believe, be regarded as an ever-famous American victory. These words were a direct rebuke to Montgomery's claims, a recognition of American sacrifice, and an attempt to repair damaged Anglo-American relations. Churchill also said, "The United States troops have done almost all the fighting and have suffered almost all the losses. The Americans have engaged 30 or 40 men for every one we have engaged, and they have lost 60 to 80 men for every one of ours." These statistics demolished any British claim to having saved the Americans in the Bulge. The historical record shows that Churchill's intervention worked. According to contemporary accounts, American anger began to subside after Churchill's speech. The alliance held together. But Montgomery remained a problem. According to various accounts, Eisenhower seriously considered asking for Montgomery to be removed after the press conference incident. Only Churchill's personal intervention with Eisenhower prevented Montgomery's relief from command. Churchill had to choose between defending his difficult field marshal and maintaining the Anglo-American alliance. He chose the alliance. His parliamentary speech threw Montgomery under the bus, diplomatically but unmistakably, to preserve relations with America. This was Churchill at his best, recognizing a crisis, understanding what needed to be said, and saying it clearly and effectively. His words saved the alliance that Montgomery's ego had nearly destroyed.
The Battle of the Bulge press conference became a defining moment in understanding Montgomery's character and Churchill's diplomatic skill. Montgomery could win battles but couldn't resist claiming excessive credit. Churchill could manage difficult allies and repair damaged relationships. What Churchill said when Montgomery took credit for saving the Americans was exactly what needed to be said: the truth, stated clearly, with proper credit given to those who deserved it, and with enough diplomatic skill to fix the problem without making it worse. This video presents historical events based on documented records, including the official parliamentary record of Churchill's January 18, 1945 speech, contemporary newspaper accounts of Montgomery's press conference, memoirs from participants, and military records. All quotations are sourced from these verified historical documents. Historical interpretations may vary among historians and scholars. Viewers are encouraged to consult multiple sources when studying this period of military history. This content is intended for educational purposes.